Good.
Famously, Fernando, at the Nürburgring in 2007, on the Thursday, Fernando came up to me and he said, "Can you give me a list of all the people who work on my car?" And I thought, okay, yeah, I can do that. And then it's like, well, to what extent? Because obviously there's the guy in stores who hands the parts out to the mechanics that work on your car. There's the tyre guy. There's you can't really define who works on one car and who doesn't work on one car. So anyway, I came up with a list that I thought was okay, as best as I could do, included the fuel guy and the tyre guy. But I didn't know what it was for, so we had our pre-chat, and then at the end I said, "Oh, but here's the list." He said, "Oh, thanks very much." And then a little while later, he came back in the motor and he said, "Oh, can you these guys on the list? Can you get them just to meet me in the back? I just want to have a chat with my guys before the weekend starts." I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So I went to the garage, got the guys, and said, "Can we all just gather? Fernando wants to have a quick word with us." And he appeared at the back of the garage with a bunch of envelopes, and he just said, and then he said, "No, at Renault, I used to like to share in my winnings with my guys on my car, and it's not something I've done at McLaren so far, but it's something I just like to show my appreciation for, you being on my car and doing such a great job." And he handed these envelopes out, and we opened them, and there was I think there was €1,000 in each envelope.
Nice.
And we were kind of gobsmacked. And this included Tyler. I mean, you know Tyler. He was one of the guys there.
Of course.
And it was like, oh, blimey, we were just like, well, that's a bit strange. That's never happened before. And I think we were just sort of nonplussed. We didn't really know what to say. So we just said, "Oh, that's really kind. Thanks very much." And he was very humble. He wasn't,
Nice.
He was just saying, "No, I really appreciate your help." So anyway, we went off and did our thing, and a little while later, Dave Ryan came into the motorhome, looking with a face of thunder, and he's like, "What the hell just happened in the garage?" And I was like, "Well, Fernando just did it." And he said, "Yeah, I thought that's what's happened. That's basically, you've got to give us all the money. You've got to give the money to me. You've got to give the money to the team. It's completely outrageous. We can't have that in this team." I was like, "Oh, okay. Really sorry. Didn't know that. Okay." And he basically said, "Anyone who doesn't hand their money back is going to get sacked." And we were like, okay. And it was made known, and everyone gave their envelopes back. And I believe the envelopes were basically given back to Fernando, and he was told never to do it again.
And I'm sure that's the case with all the teams today. They have that policy for sure.
I'm sure, and I actually think that's fine. I agree with that, really. But it became, the story went out, I believe, or it got known in the media that something had happened, and basically it was Fernando tries to buy his allegiance with his mechanics, and maybe I'm naive. I didn't feel that was what it was. It was I think that was kind of a normal thing back in the day. I know people who work with other drivers, like there was a guy I knew who had a watch that Riccardo Patrese had given him, and various people had various things that people who worked with them had given them. So, and I gather it was true that he had at Renault, he had given his guys stuff. So,
well, and I can tell you now, Carlos Reutemann always did that with his race mechanics, and so did Nigel Mansell. So there you go. Yeah. You wouldn't be allowed to do it today because of the whole visibility thing and the whole team thing, but both of them did that for sure. Yeah.
But I think it showed the mismatch, and this is something we alluded to earlier about drivers feeling tight within their teams. I think this showed the mismatch between Fernando and McLaren in that, I really liked Fernando, and I liked working with him. He was a nice guy to work with. He did play the game a little bit, as we've mentioned, but he was a good guy. He wasn't a nasty person.
No.
And some of the stuff that went on was started by the Lewis camp. Lewis and his dad, in some of the things they did. But it just showed that Fernando didn't fit at McLaren, and it just got worse and worse after that. Certainly after Monaco. And I just thought it was a real shame because he was a brilliant driver. and he was an absolute massive asset to the team. So yeah, it was just such a real shame it didn't work out.
And he still is today, and he may well win the World Championship next year in an Adrian Newey, Andy Cowell, Aston Martin, Honda. You know, why wouldn't he?
I wouldn't put it past him. He is a phenomenon. What I will say about Fernando is he is, and your experience with Nigel probably matches it, but I'd say he's the most determined person I've ever met. He's got determination written through him, and an absolute desire and a hunger to be successful. It just eats him up from the inside out, and it's what drives him. And unfortunately, it can put him in some bad situations. And sometimes he oversteps the mark because of that just desire that rages through him. And he is a rage. He's quite something. But I really enjoyed working with him. And the next year, when he left McLaren and went back to Renault, didn't he? And we were I think again in Jerez, or maybe it was somewhere. Anyway, it was early one morning before the first day of testing. It was still dark outside. And one of the guys came up into the motorhome for me. He said, "Oh, there's someone outside who wants to say hello." I went down, and it was Fernando. And he just popped along, and he gave me a big hug. And he said, "It's great to see you after the winter," you know. And he was just such an honestly, openly friendly, lovely bloke.
Yeah.
You know, it's a side of him that people don't see. But he's a good guy. Honestly, I think he's a good guy. So.